Alrighty, before we get going, hat or no hat? Like, I don't really want to take the whole Bogans run thing too far, but nah, I'm indoors. Alrighty, let's start this. This is my Far North Inquisition, an aggressive deep dive into a variety of issues that Cairns faces. And with this video, the first one, first episode, I'm going to start with tourism industry, because as you know, Cairns lives and thrives off of tourism. It is the heart of this town, and the industry built around it is a giant gaping cancer growing on said heart, or a clot in the arteries, so to speak. And yeah, to be quite frank, it's something that's starting to bring a tear to my eye the more and more I see it. And so we're going to go into one particular venue that I've actually requisitioned some help in gathering little bits and bobs about. Today we're going to talk about Summer House Backpackers, owned and operated by the company Somerville Hospitality, which is owned by Nathan and I believe Adrian Somerville. They are brothers. Let's do this. So, for quite some time, I was an employee of Summer House Backpackers Cairns, on a contract, actually, a 20-hour part-time contract, on the Somerville Hospitality Pty Limited's payroll. And over the course of my stay there and my employment there, I observed multiple concerns, not just with the workplace health and safety issues of the venue, like the overall state of it, also with the management and the way that they handle these issues and respond to these issues. And mind you, this is not just a backpackers, this also has a bar and a kitchen that cooks and serves food to the public on site. In fact, as well. And yeah, so I penned a letter. I actually penned two letters. The first one was about the various workplace health and safety concerns I had raised already. Also citing an issue that there is no way to really bring it to managers without feeling like you're getting into trouble. This letter followed by a second letter actively naming a couple of managers that, or one manager in particular, that flat out either ignored or told you to F off when bringing up issues, or just basically saying you don't know what you're talking about, or just treating you like a joke, and basically would then from there try and get involved in your personal life as well. The response to these two letters was, well, they fired me. Not just that, they called the police on the same day that I handed the letters. Mind you, there was no written form of dismissal handed to me, nor was there, nor was there any, statement that my shifts weren't required. I was rostered on for that. And then after the 4 days, because I looked up on the RTA, and if they're coming up with reasons, they can, give 4 days. So I left on Australia Day, of all days, and yeah, I did it rough there for a little bit. But during that time, I made it clear that I was not only pursuing this with a complaint that I made with Workplace Health and Safety, but also the council. I also stated that I would be taking this to Fair Work, and from there I started receiving calls in the middle of the night from various current on-the-books employees, on-contract employees. So yeah, in front of me I actually have the first letter I actually wrote with my OHS concerns. And basically, I started off with, I raised verbally on several occasions a series of safety concerns for both staff and guests around the venue. These are as follows: no prevention from slipping hazards behind the bar, i.e. floor mats, cutting and catching points on the workplace side of the bar. That's referring to as lots of bits of metal that, as you're walking past, the tiniest bit of your pants or your shirt will catch on. And yeah, let's just say it's I've seen some almost funny things. And as well, I was someone that actually had a couple of guests, patrons of the bar that were regulars, say that they would witness this if I did raise it. They actually saw me slip as a result of no mats and no slipping prevention. And they just, some of the staff that they hire in the kitchens are just, and that's another, it's another problem entirely. Cutting various nails, holes, and damaged worn grip tape in the stairs and the bar area's balcony for smoking. So like a massive wooden deck they've got, and they just don't give a fuck. In fact, the bar mats that we had, they actually dragged over for months to basically cover a hole there where nails and things were still sticking through. Mind you, this is one of those mats that has like the rings through it, so a nail's still, going to come up through. And then the shoe policy that they have, that they're supposed to have in the as a licensed venue, having a bar and that, they do not force. Now, this isn't just an ignorance thing; they actively do not enforce it. It's silly. You can literally walk around that same area I just talked about in barefoot, and they don't care. They're always because they do let in some very uncouth people at these venues. Mainly just 45-year-old, junky white males that, let's face it, their lives could have gone better. There's a lot of, penicillin sort of risks and that with a lot of the ashtrays. You got a lot of expended cartridges and things like that. And most of the time they fill them with water, and you just sit there trying to have a smoke smelling that. It's I thought my cigarette smells bad, And then we get to the more serious stuff like mold in the keg room, and in the beer lines themselves, on the taps, there's always black mold gathering around the seals. And the beer lines as well, not only are they not cleaned once a month, there's no roster for cleaning, there's no set record of cleaning, and as well, the only person that knows how to do that is the bar manager, who is barely on site. You know what, I'm obviously going off the cuff from this letter, so I'm actually just going to rely a lot on memory here. Residue from the liquids in the woods stained into the bar, for example, they're just ants, just always are going to be there no matter what. They're just always going to be there. This is the tropics, you've got to be under that. But no, they don't care. They won't sand back the wood and revarnish it because it'll cost too much. And then with the glass washer, right? It always breaks down, so what do? And this is something that the council, I'm pretty sure, are addressing at the moment. The dishwasher that they use for the kitchen stuff, they leave it turned on, and they don't worry about cleaning it for the bar staff to then use as the final, as the glass washer for the rest of the night, and while food is being served, because the glass washer never works. So basically, all your beer cups and your glasses and things, they're getting washed in not properly sanitized water, dishwater either, because again, not everybody they don't show anybody how to fix a lot of these things when they're out of a certain chemical or whatever. And then I went on to sort of talk about the need for some form of human relations representative within this company, because there is none. There's no way you can confer your issues to either the owner or the managers around you. The one manager I came across that did try at points, they all just sort of backed him into a corner and bullied him into, it's either that or he's, in on something, really, really sinister. But I personally like to believe it's, just, again, he's been put into a corner and he's getting paid a wage. What are you to do? I'm not going to name this gentleman, but and then I move on to something, a couple of people, actually, I sent some messages off seeking replies to some questions I had. A couple of them responded. Both want to remain anonymous. So basically, I asked a few different questions about, these sorts of things, and I basically just got confirmations of what I had thought, really, as for what I had been told and what I had seen from the venue. But both of them had an express concern with a gentleman who used to stay at the venue, who for a long period of time was sexually harassing women. He would do all kinds of, like, you know, little subtle kind of sentences and, you know, attempts to grab and get touchy. And at one point or another actually followed one of these people into a bush and hid behind it. This person wasn't evicted from the hostel. It wasn't fired from working for accommodation at the hostel until the one of the manager's relatives that also works and lives there stepped forward and had a screaming match with them in the public kitchen. And this is after like a good month or two of a lot of people coming forward to management and actively stating that this man is a problem. But yeah, a few managers at the time always sort of stepped in to defend him, one of which was actually a woman, which very much surprised me. And yeah, we get on to the work for accommodation. So according to Fair Work, when it comes to things like work for accommodation, it is just flat out, you cannot pay somebody with goods or services. You have to pay them a wage. That's what Fair Work says. And from there, the whole idea of work for accommodation is that you're then, you know, having your wage deducted, and it's being put onto the books that that's what's happening before the money is even given to you. This doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen that way. So, for example, a weekly rate in an 8-bedroom dorm at Summer House Backpackers costs $80. That's the weekly rate you can get. Sometimes on booking.com or in a walk-in cash rate, you can get it at $14 for the night. Now, the minimum wage, as you know, is $19.80. It's actually what I was on the 20-hour-a-week contract. Now let's do some quick math there. Rounding up the 20 cents for now, we got 20, 40, 60, 80. So 4 hours and you're what? 80 cents under. You're 80 cents under what you need for that room. That's after 4 hours. Now your work for accommodation at a venue like this is 12 hours. Yeah. Like, you're doing 3 times the amount of work for the same thing. And it's not like it's easy work. Like it is, you know, it's a decent amount of work that you're doing, and it's but then yeah, they'll turn around and, you know, they'll find some justification for it. They fudge their books so it looks all right, but the reality is that yeah, you're working for 12 hours and you're getting an $80 bed for it, and you could just be paying that rate. And a lot of people do this. They very quickly leave the work for accommodation side of things and go and get a real job and just pay their cash rates. But a lot of those people as well get moved on pretty quickly because they're only paying for the 8-bedroom dorms. You know, they don't really care about those people. They come and go. And yeah, for myself, so I had the 20 hours on the contract, and so I had an arrangement where I was supposed to pay the difference based off of the 15 hours on top of that I would do for my... Now this is a private room that costs $240 a week. Mind you, there's no aircon in this. This was like a pretty dingy room. Now, so they'd, you know, I'd work the 12 hours, then they'd have me work that 15 hours, and then they'd find other ways to squeeze this extra couple of hours out of you. And the other thing is, as well, is all of this is meant to be in a written agreement. If you're working for accommodation as the way Fair Work defines it is appropriate, i.e., you know, it's been deducted from your wages, you know, it's all visual, you're meant to have that agreement in writing. Again, that is on the Fair Work Ombudsman's website. Live under an airport, what can you do? And yeah, again, they simply don't follow this process because it's just become a normal. It's like, oh, it's a backpackers, it's work for a comm. It's like, no. Just no. or that could be cash that they legally have to pay you, but they won't. And then if they do pay you, they're not going to put you on contract at that point. They're going to, again, offer you $18.50 each hour in cash. And then we get onto those that they will put on contracts. For myself, I was lucky enough that there were government wage subsidies that they could use through my job network provider to get me 20 hours paid, i.e. the government was paying my wages while I was working there. Now from there, I was entitled, part-time contract, I was entitled to penalty rates on the weekends, on public holidays, and overtime if it went over the 20 hours, sick leave and all of that. Now, I still have not seen, even before and after I've left, I still haven't seen the penalty rates from the Christmas period that I worked, both Christmas and New Year's. And yeah, not once have I ever received a cent of overtime over the 20 hours each week that I did. And there have been weeks that, especially over that Christmas period, most of the people that were working there were work for a commerce or folks on contract like myself. All the managers went away and we were doing 40 hours a week each. Yeah, there were points where we would stop one shift that was 9 hours, have an hour or two to ourselves, and then have to open the bar in the morning. And this is the other thing as well. These people that are getting paid on either a part-time contract for minimum wage or getting work for a com, they are also providing security services, which under the Security Providers Regulation and the Security Providers Act, both quite clearly state that, to be performing security functions, you need to have a license. There is some huge fines for that, and they just blatantly ignore it. There's, myself, for example, I'm just going to stand up. I'm not a big dude. I may be 6'2", I may look a bit, but I'm not muscly, I'm not a big dude. Now, I was expected for 3 or 4 nights a week to babysit a bunch of, grown-ass alcoholics that, they're just that. They're rage-filled alcoholics. And from there, let's just say there were some interesting moments. Some of the more, physically intimidating ones that worked there actually felt the need to grab things like bats to defend themselves, which, again, as somebody that's actually done a security operations course, they actually make it quite clear in those courses that you, under no circumstances, can just pick up a weapon like a baton or a bat and walk out there and go to hit somebody. They've got to be doing something, you know what I mean? There's a lot of different... there's a whole lot that has to happen before you're pulling out a weapon. And that's even that's when you've got a security license. Again, these are just stoners sitting behind a desk in one of the more Darrow areas of Cairns. And but again, this place takes advantage of people that are in a tough spot. And this is where we get onto the policy that they have about Australians and under 35s. So they got this whole thing that, you can't be Australian, apparently, to stay there, but half of the people staying there are Australians. This isn't just the Cairns location. Most of their backpackers actually have a problem with this at the moment. There's just too many Aussies. They're the only ones that are willing to stay at their venues. Now, you can say that's partially because of COVID, but again, you can only partially say that's because of COVID. Now, the other thing is, they ask for a passport. And they use this in a way that really sickens me, because what will happen is someone will come in, there'll be an Aussie that looks remotely respectable, and the ID that they will use will be a normal run-of-the-mill photo identification card. And we're supposed to check them in because they look alright, they're not too sus or whatever. But then if someone of an indigenous persuasion, or someone even with the remotely, hippie or homeless looking clothing or dreadlocks or anything comes in, we're supposed to come down on them like a ton of bricks and ask them for passports and, all this, that and the other. As well, they're very selective about the vaccination proof. They use that as a little bit of a weapon. So depending on who you are, you'll get asked for either the actual confirmation of a digital certificate, or if, they like you, they'll just ask you for the paper one. they add these layers basically to, they say it's to stop homeless people and that sort of checking into their venues, but at the same time they're hiring these homeless people because they need a place to stay. I was actually one of these people. I was sleeping on the side of the street when they took me in for a work for a common position. And as well, within about a week or two, maybe 3 weeks, for the 2 days that the housekeeping manager was not working, while not on the contract yet, I was still working for a com at this point. I was managing the housekeeping. Mind you, I have no previous housekeeping experience. I mean, I might have 10 to 12 years hospitality and tourism experience from working in backpackers, bars and kitchens, but I don't have housekeeping experience. And within 2 or 3 weeks, while working for accommodation, I was on her days off, I was doing her job. And that's just, yeah. And the same thing that happened when, again, Christmas, New Year's, all the managers, not just the reception one, but the barman, it all went away. The only one that was there was the housekeeping manager that I just mentioned. So basically the role of running everything was left to basically 3 people. Myself, my partner at the time, Aoife, and another receptionist by the name of Pepe. Mind you, she was one of the people that threatened me over the phone with the whole, called me out while I was drunk one night after the whole Fair Work thing. But anyway, and yeah, so at this point as well, the kitchen chef / manager, Roman, would also try and have a hand in it. The actual bar manager herself, the one that fired me and threw me out for raising these concerns that I did when she returned, she was the one that put me in charge of the rostering for the bar during this period. And mind you, I had only just finished her, what she called training, which was, she was supposed to be around to train me, and basically I just ended up with whoever was working at the bar at that time, which I already knew, and kind of just did things. I constantly, was having to, get someone other than the bar manager, to explain to me certain electronic things, because she hadn't told any of us how to do a lot of this stuff before she left on a nice little 2-week holiday that turned into a 3-week holiday that turned into, her coming in and trying to do one of the other managers' jobs while, she was there, and it's, ugh. So this isn't, what I've just been speaking about here, this isn't an issue that's specific to this venue. The reason I bring up this venue is because it's the most recent and fresh on my mind. But this is a systematic issue with hospitality and tourism industry in Cairns. This town is sick, and it comes from the people that are willing to get chummy with the right people and pay the right people the right things and vote certain ways. I'm sorry, but it all literally comes down to folks like Bob Manning, folks like Warren Ench, San Marino, all these kind of, chummy businessmen, politician style people, all getting chummy with people like Nathan Somerville and Adrian Somerville, who actually reside, or Nathan at least resides in the area of Sydney that's most commonly referred to as the politician's capital. Yeah, he's a North Shore kid. I have reached out to this venue in a few different ways. I've emailed each individual site across the East Coast, and I've also messaged on LinkedIn the owners. I've also sent the requests via Facebook messages to former employees that I had a feeling would, sort of jump in on this little cult, as opposed to have the audacity or the balls to step up and say something, regardless if they remained anonymous or not. And on that note, I will really thank the few people that did come forward. I understand the fear, I understand the uncomfortability of it, knowing that saying one thing about one venue is putting your ability to stay at any venue at risk, because they all talk to each other, and yeah. So thank you again. I know it's hard, but yeah. And that's the thing, there's no... The closest thing we have really is things on social media, the social media and Patreon sort of campaigns, donating things like Hospo Voice, for example. That doesn't help. Like, new laws and things like that won't really help. Like, unless they're at a federal level, like Fair Work needs to real shape up. Like, there needs to actually be protections for people that are, you know, being threatened. Because at the moment, it's just kind of here, it's written here that you've got that. It's not really something that's enforced. And as well, they directly restrict your ability to make complaints to Fair Work through the, the difficulty of putting everything into one complaint. And you can only make one. You're not allowed to make more than one. Like, you're not allowed to, even if you've got multiple things that are actually, you have to pick the one you think is going to be the strongest. It's a joke. They expect you to have some kind of legal understanding of this stuff. Now, I might have a little bit, but I'm not a lawyer, and most people don't even have the understanding that I do either. But yeah, and the other thing as well with a lot of these managers, like, some of the good ones, like some of the good venue managers and like that, they leave. Not just leave that venue, they leave the industry itself. Like, the amount of managers, or like even security guards, or like, hell, even business owners that sort of saw what was going on around them and decided, nah, they're working at servos or bottle-os now. It's amazing. And honestly, it's like, bottle-os are all the better for it, you know. They've got some good experienced people standing behind the bar, standing behind the counter that, you know a real dodgy person when they walk in. Like, the thing is, like, what can you do? I can't do anything apart from make this. Like, I mean, hell, like, they still, like, you know, the same people that... I'm gonna get myself worked up with this. And yeah, on another note as well about this issue, this particular backpackers in question, for a long while, was regarding themselves as a youth hostel, which, if you're a Queensland resident, you would be well aware refers quite specifically to youth accommodation services being provided. What a lot of old folks will refer to as a halfway house. St. John's Youth Shelter is one that I personally stayed at as a kid. This is something that they are well aware of and have been corrected on. I actually was one of a few people that sent some things off, like, hey guys, you're not meant to be calling yourselves a youth hostel. And as well, the people that did respond via messages, they also stated they weren't aware that this venue had any non-for-profit or youth services being provided. They're calling themselves a youth hostel as well. If they think that that's, we're providing youth accommodation, then why are you letting 40, 50, sometimes even 60-year-olds stay there? Stay there, not just visit the bar, stay there. And as well, I really still would like some of the people in question to answer some of the questions via email, via message, via anywhere really. Hell, if you want to sit down and talk it out, I'm happy to do that too. Because, let's face it, like, the whole time I was staying there, I was telling you this stuff, and then it would get brought up by guests, or problems would start arising, and I'd be sitting there saying, I told you so, a lot. I would literally come up after some of these people had finally been evicted and be like, I pointed that out 2 weeks ago. I pointed that person's violent, or I pointed that person's sexual, or I pointed that person's harassing behaviours out. Hell, I've even pointed out issues with bring your own alcohol, which is something their license doesn't allow. They just blatantly ignore that. As well, there was, on many an occasion, the one person that got kicked out, the guy I mentioned before, he actually brought a prostitute there and actually fucked them in the pool. Didn't get kicked out for that either. He's not the only one. It's actually a regular occurrence where there's drugs and prostitution and things like that going on. In fact, there's actually a couple of stories I could talk about there, but I'm not a dick, and I appreciate the friends I have, but rest assured there's, more than one hooker or meth addict walking through there and doing their thing on a daily basis. As well, there is someone staying at this venue who likes to pretend that they've got a firearm. It's not a real one, it's just a metal replica, but they were driving around with it in one of their vehicles at one point, and it's like, what? Like, and as well, this is one of the people that drives their shuttle, like the bus that carries people to and fro the city. Like, I hope he doesn't have it in the shuttle while he's driving that, because that would make for a very, very funny story. But yeah, like, and as well, yeah, so ever since I have started down this little path of bringing up a lot of the gross little things, and even posted up the pictures and sent them, all that, even my former partner has begun to instigate forms of harassment by stalking my social media feeds, looking for things that they can use. Again, like, that hurts. Like, when people will go to that level to stop you from speaking for something that's, like, it's not like we're talking about, like, something ridiculously, controversial in the eyes. I'm not talking about, like, it's not like we're talking about something intense or whatever. We're talking about something we all know to be true, and that is a cancer at the heart of the tourism industry in this town. I could go on about Gilligan's, I could go on about, like, the Woolshed, I could go on about Mad Cow back in the day. Like, I could go on about these hotels, these new ones that they stick up. I could go on about the Pier Bar, I could go on about the Salt House, I could go on about all these places. It's all the same, everywhere you go. Like, yeah. And then another person, that I didn't send questions off to this person, I was just speaking to them socially, and because I actually didn't ask, I'm not going to mention their name, but, yeah, the actual owner of Summer House Backpackers is known for, he only comes up to, party and get on a bunch of drugs and go to doofs and whatnot, and fuck backpackers at the backpackers he's staying at because, I own it. It's like, yeah. As well, like, this is a bar that, like, they only once in a blue moon will actually walk up and ask people for ID if they look under 25. Like, I had people, like, shocked that I was asking them because they'd been there so much, they'd regular there so much. It's just like, I'm sorry, like, I don't know that, I'm gonna ask. But, that was something I was actually pulled up about. I'm apparently not supposed to ask so much for ID. Another thing was, like, overpouring drinks. It's like the amount of times the manager would say something about it and then overpour the drinks the next day. And then everybody, it made working at the bar really difficult because I would pour standard drinks and I'd have them turn around and say, oh, where's the splash? Where's that little bit more? I'm your mate, because every Dick, Joe and Harry that's working at that bar is being told, directly overpour. It's, yeah. Honestly, it was just really degrading working there, and again, like, it's not just this venue, it's all across Cairns. Like, I can't really say in recent years about other places, but Cairns itself, every time I've come back, every time, it's just the same. The names and the faces might change, but the behaviour is the same. This is it is a paradise for the Gronks. And unless something changes really quickly, I'm sorry, but all the bad things about this town that you complain about, all the methods and all the, the stabbings and all the drugs and this, that and the other, that's only going to get worse. Because, again, those kinds of people, when they're, the coppers are getting, too much for them in places like Brisbane, the Gold Coast, or Sydney, they all come up here. And, well, yeah, like, they're just going to keep coming. Because venues like this tell them that it's a perfect place for them to come. This little snippet of the video is directed at a one Nicole Stieglitz. You should not be managing anything. Not a bar, not a fish and chip shop, not even a kiosk on the side of the street. You simply do not have the capability to manage something. Because let's face it, the bar that you're managing is disgusting. It just is. And, like, again, you should honestly quit your job and go work at a servo somewhere. Go work behind a bar as just a bartender. And, yeah, just see how you go for a fair few years. Because, to be quite frank, Nicole, you're a bit younger than I am. And I have been working in the industry longer than you have. And guess what? I wouldn't even say I was qualified to manage. I'm not. Again, you've had people at that bar that have got more experience than you working under you. And yeah, they're not even qualified to manage, but they could probably do a better job than you. In fact, I can confidently say this. We did. Over Christmas, we did a better job than you. And now for some final thoughts. So again, a lot of these, venues and things like that don't really like to talk to anybody when they're questioned about things, and well, that says all you need to know. They're afraid to answer questions. It's as simple as that. They're afraid. It's not that they can't be bothered, it's not that they don't have the time, it's that they're afraid, because if they were to start answering questions, it would provide the opportunity to ask more, because the stories would fall apart. But yeah, like, we all go on and on about all the little things in Cairns, and people might be wondering why I'm not starting with something like domestic violence or drugs or youth crime. But the thing is we can't really begin to even touch things like that until if we can't even fix the easily fixable things, like, because the tourism industry in Cairns is a very easy fix. It literally is a matter of people getting off their asses and doing their fucking jobs. But, well, yeah, there's a big old sign heading out towards past the airport. Some people have put up that quite aptly describes the council as a mafia, so good luck getting the mafia to do anything. And yeah, like, so it's like, if we can't, just snap our fingers and fix that like we're Q, then how are we supposed to start delving into some of the more, like, real issues that Cairns has? Like, I mean, for fuck's sakes, we live in a community that is supposed to, we rely on police and things like that to, come and, regulate the peace or whatever. But no one comes to them about things, because it's, that whole snitches get stitches attitude. But I always thought that was just in the drug world or the crime world. I didn't realise that applied everywhere. That if you call out wrongdoing, you're the bad person. It's an attitude that needs to change. It really does. Like, that's why I've been calling for people to come forward about anything. Like, I mean, do you think I'm gonna stop with backpackers after this, or like bars after this? No, we're gonna do a little bit on tourism industry, and well, yeah, then we will move on to things like domestic violence and youth crime, and yeah, the sexual orientated crimes that this town has. And a lot of it does come down to the community leaders, so to speak. your business owners and your politicians. And same with the main buttress running up to their primary accommodation area, also filled with. Another couple of random things that they refuse to cover up in any way, shape or form. And this here is actually pipe damage that runs into the rest of the building. So you can see the black mold staining into the wood because they don't clean it, they just hose it. Like, this is 2 years worth. Ah yes, the river system that is the bottom floor of Summer House Backpackers. Ah, more clusterfucks of electrical work. Water tripping right next to it. 24-hour reception, unattended, as always. Welcome to the summer house.
And don't forget to subscribe.